After sifting through the comments on my last couple of videos, whilst close, I think slightly more people wanted me to do my flex tanks tier list today, leaving my main tank tier list to be done tomorrow. But before I get into this next tier list though, I just want to quickly thank everyone for the support on these types of videos, which have easily been my most well received to date, and saw the channel pass 800 subscribers yesterday, which is amazing and a real motivator to keep putting out videos on something I really enjoy talking about. So without further ado, let's get straight into this Overwatch League flex tank tier list by quickly starting with my single member of my E tier. As much as I, and nearly every other fan, loves Mickey as a person, and his Brigitte performances at the end of the inaugural season in Stage 4 were fantastic, even if he laid the groundwork and blueprint for Brig JL dominance today. Unfortunately, the harsh reality is even during last season, it was clear that his Diva play was in decline, and was of an overall very poor quality, and the fact that he hasn't even had a sniff of starting so far this season, I feel like I have to mark Mickey down as the worst flex tank in the league, even with no concrete gameplay this season. Just above him are 3 players who make up my D tier. Despite having an opportunity at playing this season, their performances on Diva have been for the most part very poor. Coolmat, like most of the Outlaws players, has just seemed to have lost any level of quality that he showed off last season, and in a similar way to Mickey last year, it looks like he isn't good enough at his position anymore. Although to his credit, like Jake, he has at least added a little bit of stability in terms of Houston's identity when running 3-3 goats, even if the team sucks. Just ahead of him I have Finzi, who for most of Stage 1 I actually felt looked really quite promising, or at least closer to an average level player, with a better level of consistency compared to his teammates, and just a solid all-round game. However, in Stage 2, some of his slight issues have become far more noticeable, and he often finds himself getting caught out of position, resulting in him being demeched very early, as he severely struggles to have any kind of impact in game, and given the quality that we'll see as we move up this list, I have to slot him in here at D tier. The last member of this tier is Gaguri, who it's a shame I have to put her this low. Like another member of this tier list, it's a pity she cannot show off her best known hero, Zarya, but to be completely honest, her Diva for the most part has been uninspiring, consequently marking her out as one of the weakest members within the now improved Dragons lineup. It has only been highlighted further, with her being subbed out during their great Stage 2 run to the playoffs, which I think can only cement this D tier grade further. Moving on to my C tier however, I think we can begin to see the overall quality of the position start to improve. I firstly want to discuss the trio of Sansom, Fried and Elsa, who make up 3 of the 4 players I have here, and for the most part I think they've been okay and serviceable. Sansom seems to get a surprising amount of flack and is quickly cast aside as being one of the major problems facing the Justice. But I actually think he's, especially before their roster moves at the beginning of Stage 2, he'd actually been one of Washington's more consistent and reliable members, with some significant Diva bombs. That's not to say he doesn't make mistakes, and early demex have sometimes been an issue, especially towards the end of Stage 2, but overall I think placing him as average within C tier is a fair assessment. Fried equally received a lot of criticism after he was swapped in for Atlanta during their drama with Dako. And undoubtedly, whilst he's clearly not as impactful or as strong of a Diva as Dako, he certainly wasn't a major reason behind their decline in form at the beginning of Stage 2, where I thought he was decent and not deserving of a drop below C tier. Then there's Elsa, who's one of the first players on this flex tank tier list to have shown us some more variety in their hero pools away from Diva, with some showings on Sombra and Symmetra, which have been really good, but I just feel what I'm about to say may be a little bit harsh. But looking at the players who I have above him, his Diva comparatively hasn't had nearly as much of an impact at all, and when running it, he's been one of the weaker parts of Chengdu's setup, which is why I hesitate to have him any higher. Lastly in my C tier I have Nevix, who's not seen much playtime at all this season, with the Shock running their star Choi Hyobin instead. Yet in a similar way to Sleepy, I think that despite not playing, Nevix is still a really good player. I think that was highlighted in how strong San Francisco remained when he was subbed in, as he put in a solid mature performance. Potentially he's a player that given time and the right team, he could prove he is great. But right now with how little he's played, I can't justify moving him any higher than here for now. My B tier is where the competition for the flex tank position really begins to heat up in my opinion, with a number of very impressive and strong players. Just to start with, I want to quickly mention Zumba, however at the bottom of this tier, despite the limited amount of playtime he's had this season. Yet in a couple of these games where he's been able to play, I think he's continued with his consistent quality from last season, having looked like one of the strongest members of Seoul's lineup during that stretch, which is why I have him here. Like Nevix, it's unfortunate he's riding the bench behind a player seen as having a higher quality than him, and equally like Geguri, it's sad that we pretty much haven't seen any opportunity to see the level of his Zarya play that was world famous prior to the Overwatch League beginning. Just above him, in perhaps my most controversially positioned player throughout this tier list, I have Space. Now I won't deny that he has an incredible amount of potential, and has shown in the past that he's one of the best Diva players in the league. But right now, I think there are a number of factors that prevent me from putting him any higher than where I have him right now. The first being his lower flexibility compared to many others that lends him a little extra weighting, but more importantly, he hasn't been at all impressive this season. Now of course you can say this is hard on a bad team, but there have been a couple of players coming up that have risen to the occasion and put in clutch carry performances, which Space just hasn't at a similarly consistent rate done, beside the odd big Diva bomb or Gravies. I've been saying for weeks in my match reviews, but I've just been waiting for him to take a step up and take over the game with his quality of play, and that just hasn't happened, even if he and the rest of his team have started to find their feet and improve. And unlike Space, the 4 other remaining members of my B tier above him have done just what I described in being able to take over and carry matches in their sides at times. Hopper, Envy, RCK, especially when flexing onto Sombra, have put in some incredible displays, with a particular strength being their EMP efficiency. And the trio, like Rhea, have also been able to come up clutch with a number of large Diva bomb kills. For all 4, what holds them back in being positioned any higher in this tier list is some displays where they've been weaker, been caught out of position and focused down, which is much less of an issue as we head up into my higher 2 tiers of this tier list. Now I think these next few players that I'll be discussing have maintained a slightly better level of consistency, or at least have put in even more dominant performances than those below them, which is why they find themselves in my flex tank A tier. I'm going to begin with Michelle, who's been one of the most surprising rookies this season in my opinion, as I wasn't sure at the beginning of the season as whether he'd beat out Zumba for the starting place on the Dynasty. His Sombra is arguably the best of all the flex tanks here, and he's become a massive asset for the Dynasty, helped by his incredible utility and efficiency he gets out of EMP. Alongside a great Sombra, his Diva's been equally fantastic, at times really keeping Sol together with strong consistent displays every week, but I think deserves him a spot in my A tier. Next to him I have a pair who I think have defined quality consistency, even if they haven't captured many headlines, with Void and Poco, putting in major shifts to their teams every week. I think they've been strong all round, with an ability to make impact plays through knockbacks or Diva bombs, and a lack of poor personal performances, even if their teams have stuttered, keeps them above those I have in B tier. Note meanwhile in my eyes, undoubtedly is the best Western flex tank in the league right now. He's been brilliant on both Boston and now Dallas, even showing a little bit of flexibility. All in all, his mechanics have been really strong, and he's developed a great skill and ability to be able to isolate and target opposition supports, particularly Zenyatta's in the backline, taking them out at the beginning of teamfights, that's proved critical to awarding his team success. Lastly, to round out my A tier is Dako, who before and after his absence at the beginning of Stage 2 has really displayed the influence that his Diva can have for his team. His damage output is very high, and he utilises this and his thrusters to consistently harass opposition tanks to force them out of position and retreat, where they collapse, and this has been the main way the Reign have been able to win teamfights, especially when factoring in the aggressiveness of the rest of the team, and highlights the influence his Diva has on all of the success they achieve, and with his team falling apart in his absence, I think it emphasises even further why he deserves a spot in my A tier. But in my top tier are 4 flex tanks that I think do even more than everyone else below them, although, unlike a lot of my other Overwatch League tier lists, I think there are clearer separations between the players I have here. For instance, I think Meko is the worst of the 4 players here. For a stage and a half he was brilliant, with excellent Diva bombs alongside fulfilling the difficult role of protecting Mano and Jonak simultaneously. The reason however I say he's the worst of the 4 here is after seeing his performances against Seoul in the playoffs, and Atlanta in their 2 losses at his past stage. Meko was very comfortable filling the Diva role in the Excelsior's passive, counter-attacking setup, with his focus more defensive minded and on-set plays. But in all 3 of these losses, New York were forced into a more aggressive and initiative based style, and in it he just looked lost, resulting in him being demeched early in a lot of fights, and it's this apparent weakness that means I can't consider him amongst my top 3. Within this 3, I think Janu and Choi Hyobin are very evenly matched. They both are excellent at being more balanced forces on 2 very aggressive teams in the Titans and Shock, and have come up clutch on a number of occasions with some massive Diva bombs. And whilst Janu has been receiving a lot of attention, it's only been towards the end of Stage 2 that Choi finally started to receive the recognition he deserved for the important role he plays in the San Francisco success. But topping my S tier for the first time is not a member of one of the top 3 teams, as I have Fury of the London Spitfire. Unlike the others, he does have an ability to play Sombra, but it's only a minor advantage. More importantly, he more than anyone else here has had to carry his team for the longest amount of time. He's come in clutch with huge Diva bombs and Gravies, and there are multiple games that come to mind, most memorably against Philly, where through a moment of his brilliance, he was able to win the series for his side. London, unlike the other top teams, has had its ups and downs, but even during the lowest points, I think Fury has shown us how talented he is, with a consistently high level of play, for which I think he deserves, just by a little bit, to be recognised as the best flex tank in the league right now. Of course, there is one man even Fury couldn't possibly even pretend he can contend with. One man who sits heads and shoulders above all of the rest. One man so strong, he doesn't need to perform on stage. One man so feared, he's forced his team to commit to his language. One man too good even for a dynasty to hold on to. One man who brings mayhem every time he's on stage. One man who rules them all. And with that, I'd like to thank you for watching my flex tank tier list. I'll be back tomorrow with my main tank tier list. Before stage 3 kicks off, I'll be bringing you guys my predictions and preview for it. Otherwise, if you enjoyed, please be sure to like and subscribe. It is continuing Overwatch League coverage and content.